and some entrepreneurial process, hopefully trying to get you guys to see things just a little bit differently to what you've thought before. And now we need to get deep into some planning. So I want to talk about planning for success. Obviously we all want it. Goodness me, we all want to be successful in building a business, but she's not easy. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of those things tonight. Design failures. They put a video, I know, we'll get it, and then the other guy comes on and says, we need to put a TV somewhere. Why don't we put it here? That's a design failure, isn't it? Both of those two are very, very good working components, but they've been designed badly, and so the whole thing fails. That's the thing I want to talk about tonight. How do we end up with design failure? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. One is falling in love with ideas that don't work. We're all victims of this. This is the trap of ideas. Remember I talked about that your brain gets a hold of ideas and it circulates and you get all excited about it. Well, business is hard rock, businesses, and that's why I want to talk to you about that link that Damien found. But you need to bring in a lot of testing, analysing and learning. We need to bring in this. Instead of just sitting there in that daze and that dream of this is what I dream, I want you to go out and say, if you think that, go to the markets, take your product to the market and let me tell me what happened. How'd you go? Or take the cupcakes to your friend at work and tell me what did they say. Let's start this dreamy idea that we've got. Let's start putting in the concrete things and go and test. Go and test and find out from the market. Designing too small, I mean, that sounds really funny, but yeah, you can design too small. You can actually design something that its capacity never has the chance to grow to a point that it can be profitable. It will only ever deliver wages, in fact, probably less than wages. Sometimes we need to be thinking about a capacity issue, and that's why I'm a fan of scalability, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Not designed to the laws of business success. Business is its own animal, and when I first went into business, I had some very high ideals. My whole background is a very, how would you say, high ideal background, and when I went into business, I was going to carry that high ideal on. Boy, did I get smacked in the face, because business doesn't care. It doesn't care that your business is built on motivational speakers for people and changing people's lives. It doesn't care. Business is just business. It's like gravity. You defy, step out there and say, I don't need to worry about the laws of gravity. Just step over that ledge and see how it goes. All of us, splat. The laws of business are exactly like the laws of gravity. They don't favour a particular person. They just have very strict laws. And those laws are not pretty. And that's why I want to talk to you about that incident. That some of it is not pretty, and I need to prepare you for a little bit of that. That it's not always, the things you're going to do are not always going to be, give you goosebumps down the back of your neck. Some of the stuff you've got to do, like sacking staff and this sort of stuff, is a really horrible thing to do. Going back on your word, really horrible stuff to do. But that's business. That's what business is. And, you probably notice that people that are very successful at business are probably people you wouldn't want to have as friends, and there's a reason for that. So I'm not saying that you have to give up everything, but it is something that you need to be very aware of, that business is absolutely neutral. Business doesn't care. Business is all about selling things for more than things cost you, but you'll be surprised how hard it is to do that. Incomplete design, missing bits, and hopefully this course will help you find the bits, or at least know what you don't know. When you joined this course, a lot of you didn't even know what you didn't know. By the end of the course, you mightn't know anything except the fact that you know that you don't know now. You know that there's things that Peter talked about you know nothing about. But at the start of the course, you didn't even know you should have worried about that. Well, hopefully by the end of the course, because I've done so many businesses and because we're already establishing our own businesses, we'll be able to inform you. At least we'll introduce you to every area that you need to worry about. And not only does your design have to be comprehensive, it's not about, if you left, let's say, planes are a bad example in a way at the moment, but they're also a good example. If you just left that back flat, that little bit that sits out the back, just leave that off. No one will notice, because we've still got the big wings, we've got the big fuselage, we're just going to leave that last little bit off. What happens to the plane? It crashes, because Every single bit of that plane needs to be in place for it to work, and we have to do that in business too. We need to actually have a comprehensive approach, and it has to be cohesive. You know, it's no good putting it, you know, on a plane, you know, a different plane's wing on one side and another plane's wing on the other. It has to make sense, and this is one of the hardest things we do. We build our model, our plan in components, but when it all comes together, it's got to make sense. There can't be bits that are not compatible, you know. So this is all part of designing, and designing is a big part of the planning we do. There you go. Cute, but it'll never fly, eh? There's a lot of ideas that we get excited about, but guys, she's never going to fly. And you can put in a lot of effort, you know. I'm going to put in all this effort, but it's never going to fly, is it? It's just, you know, but I've put in so much effort, Pete. Yeah, I know, but it's never going to fly. And, you know, and I've spent a fortune. I've spent a fortune on this business. I've got both ends of it covered. Yeah, but the trouble is you didn't get it to meet, and so it's going to fail. These are design failures, and it's not about, you know, cuteness. It's not just about effort. It's not just about resources. I threw so many resources. It's about the design. It's about the modelling, and we need to do some really good modelling at the start. Working hard for wages, and I've written an article on this, and I'll get it up on Facebook and share it with you, but one of the biggest failures we make, ready? It's not that most of us will work hard enough so our businesses don't fail, because no one likes the stigma of that. In fact, you know, there's a guy I asked, I said, you know, how's your new venture going? He's had some success in the past and some failure. He says, oh, I'm really lucky. I said, why? What happened? He says, looks like this one's going to fail really quickly. Because the worst thing you can have is a long, lingering, failing business, you know. It just kills you. And you know, the vast majority of people out there in small business are actually in that boat. They're in businesses because of their design, because of their business model. There's a failure in the business model. It's too expensive to sell. Why don't you sell up? Well, it's too expensive. No one will pay me the price I've invested in. But it's too costly to keep. I have to work so many hours to get, you know, a lifestyle. This is, for me, one of the great tragedies. It's, you know, failing is good because it's a bit like bankruptcy. It's all over. You pick yourself up, and the next day you don't owe anyone, and you get on with it. The worst thing you can do is have this business that every day you've got to get up for. Every day, you know, at best it's going to pay you wages. Probably you could make more at McDonald's than you would working for your business, and you get trapped inside these businesses, and they're horrible things, and it's quite often because you didn't take the time to design it properly at the start. And sometimes when it's in place, it's very hard to unravel, as we're going to see in a minute. You know, someone says, you know, so what should you make out of a business? Well, your business should pay you wages. In other words, the wages that you would earn if you were the manager of that business. If you're an arm's length contractor brought in to manage that business, whatever that business is paying must at least pay you that, all right? Then the second thing it must do is give you about a 40% return on any money that you've invested. So if you spent $100,000 on this business, you should be being paid wages plus $40,000 on top of that. That's what you should be paying. That's what we call a successful business. That's one that can sell at a profit, and that's one that's returning you what you should be earning. The reason that why it's 40% is because you're in a high-risk business. You're in a business that has got a high chance of failure, and it's you know, it's a lot of hard work. And so that's in the industry. If you went to a finance person, that's what they would recommend. And I know that because that's the world I was in for quite a while. I was involved in setting those sort of percentages. What should each business return? And that was the one for small business. You've got to get a 40%. Big players won't come into your business unless they can get a 40% return on top of wages, paying wages, and then get that on top. So that's what we're going to try and do in this course. We're going to try and come up with a design that gives us that sort of a story. All right, not a business that, oh, it pays us wages. Well, that's not a success. That's a taxi. You know, go and invest $500,000, get a taxi, and earn yourself $1,000 a week. You know, buying a job. I don't want to do that. Failures in design. You know, we offer anyone's got a boat or been on a boat will know there's quite a difference between when the boat is in that drag mode to when it actually gets to what they call planing. When a boat gets to planing, they say it uses 30% less drag. Phil, have you had a boat? You know that. You know, when it's pushing through the water, it's just working so hard. But once it gets to that planing, it skips along. It skips along and uses 30% less power or labour to make it work. We want to get this sort of a boat. When we build a business, we want it something that skips along. But that's from design. That's from getting the right sort of engine and design of the boat to get it to do that. People say, you know, what's the biggest failure in business? Well, you know, there are so many. You know, there's a few. You know, poor execution or generally no experience. And for me, that's a pretty big one. When you tell me about you going into something with no experience, I get worried. Bad location, spending far too much. Typical of restaurants, anyone going into a restaurant or a cafe, you spend all your money in the kitchen and you don't spend your money in front of house, and the front of house is where all the business gets done, not in the kitchen. Undercapitalised, probably they say one of the biggest ones. That just simply means that the money you had, you tried to build something far too big for the money that you had. If you've got, you know, like someone says, if you've got, if you say to me you've got $10,000 and you want to go into the cafe business, I say, all right, think about a cart. Think about a cart inside a, I think someone says, I've got, you know, probably about 50,000. I say, all right, we might be able to get a little takeaway. Might be able to build you a takeaway for that. You tell me you've got 150,000. I say, well, we might be able to get a small coffee shop for that. You know, 250,000. We might be able to get a up there, sort of a coffee club sort of style. There'd be about 250, 300,000. You got $500,000. Well, we can probably build you a pretty good restaurant for that. That'll be sustainable. $1 million will probably get you a pub. It's a matter of taking 10,000 and trying to own a small and trying to build an espresso bar for it, or trying to take the 50,000 for which would make a really good espresso bar and actually try and build a little cafe out of it. No, it's not going to work, you know. So undercapitalisation means that you haven't got the resources to properly build something that's going to fly for you. No competitive advantage. Me Too strategies are very dangerous. You know, you're going to go into this market and you're going to do what everyone else is doing. Scary stuff. Competing with leaders. Don't pick on leaders. Don't go into a market where there's these really strong leaders. Find a niche. Find a niche that there's no one. Getting in the wrong market. Picking the wrong partner. Poor pricing. Disaster. You know, and we're going to spend a lot on pricing too, because pricing is something that we really need to think through. Now look, you know, that could just keep going on. If you did, you know, because it just fails over so many things. So many things, I always say there's so many things can take you out of the game. So many of them. You know, you might have 99, I've covered 99 bases a year, but there's always that one. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be thinking about strategies on how we can deal with that. So why all this pre-planning? Why do we have to do all this pre-modelling? Well, for this is I think this is a project management graph. Up here is the amount of influence we can have on our business. When, in the early stages, if we make a decision, change our business model, wow, you can have incredible influence on your business here. Once the business gets established, it's almost impossible to bring about an influence on your business. You can't change things once they're in place. Here, when we make a change to our plans here, it costs us hardly anything. You try and make your plans, change to your plans once something is established. Good luck. You know, suddenly you realise you bought the wrong equipment or you've laid out your store in the wrong way. Boy, the changes back there are disastrous, but back here they're so cheap. So costs go up and your ability to influence the business comes down. So in that early stage, which is where we are, most of us are now, in that founder's vision stage, we're very lucky. Costs of change are very low. Our ability to influence is very high. So we need to use that. We need to use that period, because once we get to proof of concept, the things start to squeeze a bit. Once we get to launch, we're actually in the crossover. Once we get to a company, boy, it's really hard. It's expensive to change, and our chance to influence the business is very limited. So that's why we need to get our design right here. You know, if you do nothing more out of this course, just understand that you've got to design your thing properly. You know, think through your thing properly, or think through your business or your opportunity properly. And for a lot of people, they'll go way out of this course, and what they're going to do straight away after the course they think, oh, I might just put that off a bit. Well, nothing wrong with that. You know, you might be waiting, like I said, 40 years of age is the average age of successful entrepreneurs. Don't go thinking this is something that, you know, not everyone's like Darcy and 13 starts a lawnmower business. Most of us have got to spend a fair bit of time nutting out what we're going to do and getting the experience. So we need to make changes to the business plans as early as possible while we can still afford to do so. It's too ineffective and too costly once we get to launch. So you've done the right thing by, you know, even though I say so myself, but you've done the right thing to at least spend some of your capital in getting some understanding and some experience and some tools and some thinking that's going to help you with that design phase. How do you succeed? Yeah, how do we succeed in this? Is selling solutions. You know, solutions is the thing, you know, because solutions have a tag with obviously a problem, isn't it? You know, solving problems for people. You know, and that's where the mindset we have to change. Instead of going into business about how am I going to make money, which is a sure way to go broke, you go into business and say, how can I provide solutions for other people's problems? That's your thinking. Later on, we will get to the business mindset and we will make profit out of this. But right at the start, success starts because we sell a solution matched perfectly to a clearly defined problem of a sustainable market. I don't want you solving a problem of a market that actually is too small. So you do solve their problem, but unfortunately there's only 12 people like that in the state. You know, we need to find a market that's got reasonable volume to it. And having a proven business model, that's what we're going to do. Proven being the key there. We want to prove our business model. So we come up with our business model, but then we need to test it and prove it. And prove every aspect of it with appropriate resources executed by a capable team. You know, even though you might not employ people, you know, when I say team, I'm not saying you're going to employ people, but you will have partners, you will have people who are supplying you, you'll have people that are going to be giving you space or whatever, mentors, all of those sort of things, accountants, lawyers. When I say team, they might not be necessarily employed by you directly, but they are part of your stakeholders that make it all work. So, so the questions are: have you found a problem that enough people want to solve? And you know, I keep coming back to this problem. You know, when you tell me about this idea, and we all have those ideas, I want you to just take that idea and say, well, what problem is it solving? Because a lot of us just come up with ideas. Wouldn't this be great? And you actually haven't linked that to how is it solving anything to anyone? You know, if they don't get their lawn grown, you know, it's a disastrous house. So you're solving a problem for you. What's the problem that I'm solving? This idea, how does it relate to a problem? And then, does your solution, the solution that you're going to deliver, solve the problem in a compelling way? Is it solving it in a way that people will say, yes, yes, that is a solution to my problem? Or is it just, oh yeah, okay, you know, do you think there's a drive to make that happen? And then finally, does your value proposition, I know these are words that are sort of all going to go over your head today, but hopefully over the next week we'll sort this out. But does your value proposition match the expectations of your customer segment you plan to target? Hairy. And I think the next slide is what I want to talk about. Value is something that I really need to get you guys head around. That when you develop this product, when you develop this solution, not everyone is going to value it the same way. What you need to do is find the target market that will value what you're going to solve in a way that they want to pay you a lot of money for. The same service offered to the wrong target will not get you a successful business because they don't value it as much as the market that a different market. So it's not about just saying we're going to develop a product and put it out there and see who wants it. You actually have to get targeted right at the start. Right at the start, you have to say, who is it that values what I've got the most? You know, Christmas trees, listen, I'm going to do it myself because you know what? I actually enjoy putting the Christmas tree up and having my kids come over and do it. But a corporate, it's nothing but a headache. So to take the same product and offer it to families, you know, my style family where, you know, kids come around and put stuff on, it's not going to work. I don't value it. I don't value what you're going to. Corporates absolutely love it, the hassle. And again, What's the thing that he's really, you're not selling Christmas trees, you're selling, you know, peace of mind. You're getting that hassle. What used to be a hassle is now just gone. So I want to talk about this. Value. So how much would you guys pay for me to go over there and get a glass of water and bring it to your table? I mean, we're talking high value here, aren't we? We're talking something that you guys would pay, what, $100 for? If I go 150, 200, 10? Anyone 10? $1, 10 cents, maybe 50 cents, because I feel sorry for you. How much would that guy pay for the same glass of water? How much is he going to pay? You know what he's going to pay? His entire savings, his wife's savings, his kids' savings, his grandparents. You know, this same glass of water to a different market is a completely different value. We need to think like that. We need to think our solution, which target, and this is just one aspect, which target can we reach that's going to pay us the value that we need to build a sustainable business. Remember, we're not about building a business that just pays wages. That's a failed business. That's not a successful business. That's a failure. So we need to find the glass of water in the desert guy. We need to find, and Phil's talking about at the moment, we've got he's a professor friend of ours, and you know, as you know, we're big in the digital space. We understand how to take people's intellectual property and turn it into digital learning products and share it with the planet. And he's just hounding Phil because Phil has got that skill and he hasn't, even though he's the professor of all these things. So our skills to that person is highly valued. To an 18-year-old that's on the computer all the time, whew, you know, we go to say, hey, look what we can do for you. It's not going to, they're just going to go, huh, excuse me? I'm rather busy here putting my Instagram on my Facebook and sharing it on my Twitter with through YouTube. You know, so what we have to offer them is no value. But to that guy, you know, it's highly valued. So we need to think about value. Don't think about value. There's no value in the product. There's no value for a glass of water. It's the situation that creates the value. So you need to create situations in your business that create value. You know, to get a plumber to come out and change one of your tap washers, you know, you're not going to pay much. To get a plumber to come out at 3 o'clock in the morning because your toilet is blocking up and it's starting to go bad, you know, well, how much are we going to pay for that, guys? I'll just pay a fortune and go and live in a motel for a week. Startup business planning. One of the big things, it's, you know, in the early days we wrote this business plan. Why do we write the business plan? For the bank, to give us funds. And I've already told you, the easiest way for a bank to say no is say, well, look, go and write a business plan and come back and see us. Because they know that 99% of people they say that to will never come back. Because when you discover how hard it is to write a business plan, you won't bother. You won't go and come back. So that saves them having to say no to everyone, all these people that come in. So that's what they'll often say that. So go and get a business plan and we'll pay you the money. They are not going to part with that money. I tell you that, you know. There's some real basics to parting with money, and one of them is security. So once you can prove to a bank that you don't need the money, they'll probably give you the money. But that's where you've got to get to first. Anyway, so what we need to do with our planning is to convince ourselves. You know, the biggest skeptic is ourselves, isn't it? You know, we've got this idea, we're all excited, and we go and lie down in our bed and say, what am I getting into here, you know? Well, what am I doing? You know, I should keep with a safe career. We need to convince you. We need to go through that customer development process, that testing process. We need to build a business model that can exploit our idea and confidently exploit it. And we can, and your primary planning period, business plans, they ask you to do what, 5-year forecast or 10 years forecast. What a lot of crap that is. You can't predict the first 3 days of your business. 3 days into your business and your business plan is holding the door open. That's all it's doing. You know, because it's this thick and it holds the door open. But because planning is great, as they say, until the first shot's fired. You know, once the first shot's fired, well, forget it. You know, it's just every man for himself. What we want to do is, so we don't want to plan from now to the next 5 years. You know what we want to do? We want to go from sitting here tonight to a business that's breaking even. That's all I want you to do. That all of our planning is just that. Don't worry, because once you get to break even, you've done it. You can bring business mindsets into a break-even business, and they will then add the profit. Because but our most important thing is that transition from sitting where you are tonight to a business that's breaking even. That's our planning. That's our thinking. Now, we've already built a business plan in our scalability or business model that's going to then make profit from there. But that's our focus. Just think there. That's going to be hard enough. In fact, that's a deep valley. There's two feelings I get when I go across, and like you know, I've been through that 30 times. I've gone from, you know, from here to a sustainable business. And it's either, there's two feelings I get. One, I'm going down this valley, just getting further and further and further and further in depth and not seeing any light, and then you come back up out of the valley. And the other one is they put you in, I've used this before, they put you in a paddock with a bull in that corner and you're in this corner, and you've got to get to that gate. And the bull is going to try and stop you from getting that gate, and you go for it. And it feels like that. And the day that you break even as a startup business person is one of the happiest days of your life. Close the day. Done. I've made it, you know. And that's our planning period. So don't go thinking about 5-year plans or 10-year plans. Let's just think about how do we go from sitting here tonight to a break even, a business that breaks even, that can at least pay its bill. And then we need to convince others. You need to convince others, obviously, with your enthusiasm. And you will be enthusiastic for your business if you're convinced, if you have a belief that your business is the right thing, that it's personally compatible, all those wonderful, important things we've already talked about. You need to make that commitment. You need to convince others. There has to be that commitment in time and money, and you guys are already demonstrating that here tonight. And then we need to develop our story. In words, while they're the language of business, people, numbers are the language of business. So we need to learn how to turn a lot of our ideas into numbers. And because we've got the computers to go and play with, we're going to have some fun with financial modelling as well as we get later in the course. Helicopter and magnifying, I've already told you about that. We need them both. There are times we're going to go right down to some really microscopic views, and then other times we're going to go back up in the helicopter and try and do it. It's not a matter of saying, oh, well, I'll just stay on the big picture. No, you have to get down the detail. And it's not good enough staying in the detail without understanding the big picture as well. So we're going to, as we go through the course, sometimes we'll be down there in microscopic view, and sometimes we'll be up in an overview, and sometimes we'll be in a detailed view. I also want to talk to you about planning horizons, and this will finish me off for today, or for the first section. We need to think about planning horizons. So when we're discussing, either with your partner or your stakeholders or your mentors or whatever, you need to understand there's 3 planning horizons. And you might be saying, yeah, I love this idea because it's going to make us a fortune and all this sort of stuff. Well, you might be talking about Horizon 3. But I might be thinking in Horizon 1 terms, which is, yeah, but how do we make it happen today? How do we get our first customer today? Oh, don't worry about that. We've got this plan to have thousands of customers. You know, there are 3 planning horizons, and you need to be sure when you're talking to anyone, what are you talking about in terms of your planning? Are you talking about Horizon 1 planning, Horizon 2 planning, or Horizon 3? You can use this pretty well. So Horizon 1 is now. What are you doing now? Like if you said to me, I've got this great idea, I think it's great, I've got a product, I'm going to say to you, well, your planning 1 horizon is to, first of all, get a proof of concept. So you might have, I want you to go to the markets and test it. I want you to bring some scones to work and test it, you know. So Horizon 1 is just the preparation that you need to do in the now. Then you're going to set some short-term milestones, which sort of towards that launch, more towards the launch. So you'll say, look, we've done that proof of concept at Horizon 1, now we're thinking about, and you can apply this to just about everything you do, your pricing strategy. Your pricing strategy, you'll have Horizon 1 strategies, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. Horizon 2 is more sort of where you get to the, okay, we're ready to launch now. We're through some testing, now we really want to go to the launch. And Horizon 3 is when the idea is fully developed. Now you need to be across all 3 horizons. So when I'm talking to you about pricing, you're going to say, or assortment, say, you're going to say, well, look, Pete, we're going to open with a very base assortment because that's what the customers are expecting. I want to make sure we've got milk, bread, and chips because and fish because that's where a fish and chip shop, for goodness sake. And then you say, and that's our assortment. But that's not your assortment. That's your Horizon 1 assortment. You're going to say, but by Horizon 2, once we're through that initial phase, we then plan to introduce different types of fish. You know, we're going to have salmon all the way up to whale or shark or whatever they have. I don't know much about fish and chips.
You open every other eatery.
And then you say, but fully developed, we're going to have actually seats, and we're going to make it more of a restaurant. We're going to make it more a la carte. We're going to, you know, and so what happens is if you come along and tell them, I'm going to open this fish restaurant and it's going to be a la carte, you're talking Horizon 3 in your head. And I'm thinking, yeah, but what about Horizon 1? So you've got to make sure you're saying to me or your mentors, in terms of Horizon 3, when this is fully developed, this is what we see. In terms of getting established in the market, this is probably what we're going to do. And once we're through that phase, we will probably take this position. Now that's 1, 2, 3 horizons. Now that will be in pricing, assortment, staffing, policies and procedures, documents, you name it, everything can be broken into those 3. And they will follow you for a long time. They will follow you even when you've fully developed business. You should always be talking in terms of the 3 horizons, the immediate, the medium to short term, and then long term, what you see. Because we need to be long-term planning. If we're not long-term planning, we're not getting our designs right. That's it. So finally we're going to revisit create a name, because I finally found the sheet that we were going to talk about last week. And we're going to do a couple of things with create a name, but today we're going to have a break in a minute. What I've got for you is a whole lot of endings. Remember I said the Facebook is still the standard for naming businesses. It still is the one that's going to give you easy trademark. The trouble with using industry names is you won't be able to trademark them. If you use strawberry something, well, you won't be able to trademark it because strawberry can't be trademarked. The only names you can trademark are those names that are fairly unique. So we actually have to create a name in order to get trademarked. Also, until under the .com and even the .com and .au, it's very hard to get a common name, the domain name. And so here you are coming up with a name that you can't actually get the domain name for. Not really smart. This 700, that's going to change things, but I think for quite a while yet, .com will still be the boss. And so if you can get a .com, I still think it's highly valued. I'm not sure about that at the moment, but Google ranks .com very, very highly, and most of us who have grown up in this age think in terms of, you know, PizzaHut.com, don't we? Whereas soon that's going to be Pizza Hut restaurant, .restaurant. It's going to take us, what's that?
It's .pizza.
.pizza probably, yeah, there is. So it's going to change, but at the moment I want to get that. Now the only way you can get a .com is if you come up with quite a unique name, and this is one way of doing it. So we'll stick to these teams if it's okay, and I'll give you what you've got to do is come up with the name. Now what I've got here is the ending part. So this is you're going to come up with the front to this end. Here's the ends. So I'm going to give you one of the businesses like personal trainer, and you've got to use something from personal training. Remember, you can bring something about personal training, maybe fitness or fit. You're looking for about a 4-word something about personal trainer, fit, or I don't know, spark, or you know, lift, or bright. I don't know. You come up with it, and you tag that onto here to create a 1-word. And then we're just going to do an exercise to see how many of those are still available in the .com. You'll be surprised how many of them are gone. But so how many do I want you to do? I want you to come up with about 3.